Do you guys realize that because of a couple of photographs taken by some random person, we are avoiding a grotesque escalation of the conflict in Ukraine? Yeah, because, see, the entire state media of the West, the so-called mainstream media that is funded by the governments and controlled by the governments, and all the information they provide are basically leaks from the government. Well, the mainstream media immediately said that missile that landed in Poland, that killed a couple of people, unfortunately, that it was Russian. It was Russian all the way. And were it not for the two pictures that emerged from that incident, no one would be the wiser. I want you to think about that for a second. See, the only reason people realize that it couldn't have been Russian is because in the pictures you can clearly see that it's an S-300. An S-300 is the kind of missile defense system that the Zelensky regime forces are using. It's not the kind that the Russians use. And so were it not for those two pictures taken by some random Polish person, as far as I know, we would never have known. We might be at war, NATO against Russia, right now, were it not for that person. And there are still people, Zelensky principally among them, who continues to insist that the missiles were Russian. And by the way, see, if you look at a map, and where the missiles landed in Poland? See, you got to ask yourself, why did the missile go from east to west? It's a missile defense system, right? So it's firing towards the east, towards the incoming missiles of the Russians, because the Russians are bombing Ukraine. They are. They're hitting the infrastructure, specifically the electrical infrastructure. And today I had another brief blackout. A couple of days ago, it was a long blackout. But anyway, the point is that the Russians are firing from the east to western Ukraine. And so the Zelensky regime forces anti-missile system, air defense system, the S-300 in this particular case, it fires from west to east. So how did the S-300 that's over there on the western side fire further west into Poland? Riddle me this, Batman. Methinks that it was deliberate. It was no accident. It wasn't like a stray S-300 wandered off into Poland. It was done deliberately. Because there have been cases where S-300s have failed to acquire a target. They've been fired but failed to acquire, and so they crashed and blew up stuff. There was this very beautiful pedestrian walkway in Kiev that got hit by Zelensky regime forces' own S-300 systems, right? But these S-300s, or this S-300 that landed in Poland, further west than Ukraine, when those missiles are aimed to the east. And Zelensky is going on and on and on about how the West has to respond to this provocation, to this escalation. I'm just throwing it out there. Remember, I'm just that kid in the story of the Emperor's New Clothes, pointing and saying, why is that man naked? Well, that's who I am. Sorry for the potato camera, but this is the best I got. But anyway, just think about this issue. A few weeks ago, Sergei Shoigu, the Minister of Defense of Russia, threw a hissy fit and called up all the ministers of defense of the West, telling them that the Zelensky regime was preparing a dirty bomb. And now we have this missile that we came this close to this random missile, triggering an escalation that would have been irretrievable. This close. That Polish potato farmer who found the missile and took pictures and posted it online, we should build him a monument. We should build him a monument, yeah, sure, but the thing is, see, the danger is not over. The possibility of a false flag remains. The dirty bomb was supposed to be a false flag. They were going to blame that on the Russians. They were going to drop it on Nikolaev. This missile, they tried to blame it on the Russians. They tried oh so terribly hard to blame it on the Russians. But the photographic evidence made it impossible. Maybe 3 times the charm? Know what's going on.